Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to G-Bear's Off-Grid Ways, a homestead in the desert. And we're going to be continuing on today with the series on things you need and necessities of moving off the grid. And today we're going to cover solar panels and such. So if you see a little jolt on the camera, ignore it. It's because there's a fly that's been bugging me around my legs, and I've got the swatter here ready to get them. All right, so before I get started, I want to do one more thing here, and I want to do a shout out to a YouTube channel called Get to the Farm. Very simple, 4 words, Get to the Farm. All right, I won't have room to put their link in here, but if anybody wants the link to the channel, just leave a message for me down in the comment section, and I'll get back to you right away with that link. Get to the Farm just did a little episode of their own where they mentioned me, gave me a shout out because of the series videos that I've been doing here. And they did a little segment that shows some of the videos I've been doing. And real interesting site. They cover a lot of different channels. And they also had to talk about fermented tea on one of the channels, which is something I might want to get into, save some money. But I do brew my own beer and make my own wine, but that'll be another thing down the line. All right, so here we are in the shop. Windy again today, windy all last night. Gonna be windy again tomorrow with we got a high wind warning with gusts up to 70 miles per hour possible. So we'll see. I'm not looking forward to that. Anyway, today we're going to get into solar panels and some other tools that you might need. Now, one of the tools that I've mentioned before in another video that every off-gridder needs, and actually anybody who lives in town should have one, a multimeter. Okay, now this one right here, I did a review on it. This is made by Kaiweets, Kaiweets, and I will put a link in the description on this one, and you can go there and buy one. They're not really super cheap, but then again, excuse me, I got a drink of water here. Then again, the nice thing about these is they do most simple tests all by themselves. All you do is plug the wires in, turn it on, and then touch your probes to whatever you want to check, and it will check for voltage, it'll check for continuity, things like that automatically. So you don't have to know a lot about how to set up a meter to get some readings that you need to get, okay? So this is how it works. We got a red and a black, okay? Black is common. So you see down here it says COM for common. So you'll plug that one in right there. Now this one over here is for ohms, volts, hertz, and temperature and all that stuff. So that's where the red one, you see the red ring around it, that's where you put the red one. Now these others are for milliamps and 10 amp readings for high amperage output. Okay, now on top of this, here's the on-off power. Just press it and hold for a second. Green light comes on and it sets itself up. Now, continuity, a lot of people get afraid when they hear all these fancy words. Continuity is nothing more than checking to see if something is continuous, to see if there's a break in a wire or something like that. Now you see up here on the screen, the gauge is going back and forth across 3 items there. That means it's on automatic smart, and it will, you just got to go ahead and check your stuff. So you put the 2 tips together and you see it went to 0, take it apart, and it goes back to auto. That means going to 0 means that it, let me get these caps off. That means that it is continuous. It has continuity. All right. So we can take this over to a battery. Oops, excuse me. I'm wearing my my chest unit here. Okay, so here we are at a battery, and red, of course, goes to the red side, and black to the black side, and we have 12.79 volts in this battery. Disconnect one side, and it goes back to auto. So first it checked ohms or continuity automatically, and without touching any buttons on it, I went right over to check voltage, and the little flashing arrow stopped on volts, and it says 12.79 volts at 22.1 degrees Celsius. Okay, so that's a great little tool, and you really do need one of these, because if you're going to be messing with solar and power, you want to have a way of testing it. All right, so let me see if I can set this here somewhere. Right there. Now I have the 2 cables from this solar panel are connected right here. So we're going to put the black down here and the red over here, and it's showing 12.8 on the meter. Let's get that into focus here. Oops, I lost the, yeah, 12.89. So what that's telling me is 12.82 auto. It's flashing in and out because I'm not holding the probes. But what that's telling me is that this solar panel is putting a slight charge in. It's sitting here in the out of the sunlight, so it's not going to have a lot of power going to it. All right. So that being said, look for the link in the description section below, and you will be able to buy one of these. And yes, I will get credit for you buying one. All right. So let me shut this off and move on to the next segment here. All right, I'm going to put that right there. Another tool that you really need, soldering gun. Now don't think that you can get away with a cheap item. I will put a link to Win doesn't make these anymore. This is really old. But I will put a link down below for a Weller, W-E-L-L-E-R, and it's as good, or if not better than this. I'm going to give you the professional model. That's just the professional model. It'll come with extra tips in the bottom with different types of tips that you use. It'll come with these little things of solder wire and that stuff. Why do you want one of these? Well, if you use this type right up here, which is basically the pen type, these are too small. They take too long to heat up. And what's going to happen is, if you're working with diodes right here, if you work with diodes and you heat them up too much, you'll burn them out before you even get to use them. All right. So why would you work with diodes? Well, here's a great little tip. If you go on your internet in your local area and Google where to buy used solar panels near me, you'll come up with a list of a bunch of places around you that sell used or damaged solar panels. Now, You say, oh, I don't want to buy damaged solar panels. Listen, a lot of solar panels that are called damaged just have no output. There's no, you put them out in the sun, you take your meter and you put it across the two cables, and it shows 0 or something really, really low. So it's not putting out electricity. So why would you want that? 9 times out of 10. 9.5 times out of 10. I had to look down to see if that fly was on my knee. It will be a burnt diode or 2 inside of the panel. Now, where do you find those? Well, let's head over this way to the panel. On the back of the panel, here's a control box or a junction box where the wires and everything come together. First thing you do is look at the back of the panel. You see the white backing on the back of the panel. Look and make sure you don't see any burn marks on that where it's turned brown from overheating. If it has, stay away from it. Then check the front for the same thing. Look for any problems on the front here that show like a burn right where these connectors come together. You don't see any of that. The only other thing is to look for broken glass. You don't want broken glass either. All right, so here we go. We're going to open up, and this is a Harbor Freight 100-watt solar panel. So we're going to open up this box, and they are weather tight, so water can't get into them. It's that easy to pop it off and get it out of the way. Now, what do we see inside here? Diode. Okay, positive, negative. That's the wires right here. Okay, then up here you see these little strips or straps coming out. Those are coming from the solar cells on the other side. All right, so what are the diodes for? Well, the diodes prevent, if half of the panel goes in the shade, it prevents the power that's being produced by the other part of the panel from backfeeding to those solar cells and cutting your output. Okay, so if one of these is burnt, one of these diodes is burnt or broken or exploded, you're not going to get proper output on your panel. So you're going to change it, and they're soldered in if it's a good panel. Okay, so you see this one soldered here to here, this one soldered here to here, and you see there's a silver stripe on the diode. All diodes will have a stripe on one side. Just remember that stripe goes towards the red or positive wire. Okay, that's all you need to remember on that. So what you would do is don't even bother testing the diodes. Just get your soldering iron out or your soldering gun out, heat up the solder, grab it with a pair of needle nose pliers and pull the thing out of there, get rid of it. And you can buy these online really inexpensively. I mean, you can buy dozens of them for peanut dollars. Okay, so even if they were really super expensive and they cost $3 each, you could repair this panel for $6. And some of the companies will actually give them away if they don't work, because it's not in their interest to try to fix them and try to sell it. Although some companies now have started selling used panels and repaired panels. So you have to check your area to see what you got. All right. Now, if you use that pencil type soldering iron and you hold it on here too long to get it hot enough to melt solder, you could blow the diode, the brand new diode, and you don't want to do that. So make sure you get yourself a good gun, and there'll be a link in the description where you can buy one. They're not going to be inexpensive. You don't want to buy a cheap one. The soldering gun will last you years and years and years and keep you happy. All right. So once you're all done replacing the diodes, you take your cover, snap it back into place. That's it. You're done. Now you can test your connections out in the sun and see what kind of output you're getting. Now, what kind of output should you get? Well, there's labels on everybody's panels. And on the panel, it'll tell you how much your voltage should be on that panel. So I took a picture of the label on the back of my big panels, my 305 watt panels. And this right here is a volts open circuit, okay? So 40 volts, that's the maximum output. ISC is the amps, 9.85. So if you took those readings with my big panels out in the sun, you should get those numbers, okay? So just check the label on the back of it, it'll tell you what you need. Now, the diodes you're going to use to replace it, your best bet is if you can read the numbers that are on the diodes that are in the panel you have, then order diodes that have those same numbers, then you'll be in good shape. But if you can't find those, what you want to do is, like for this panel, I would want to make sure I got one that's rated for at least 40 volts and at least 10 amps. That way it doesn't burn out as soon as the thing is put in the sun. Now the ones you'll get will come with straight wires on it like this, and you see it's got a stripe on the silver stripe on one side, so that would go towards the positive side. You just take a pair of side cutters, another tool you should have in your arsenal right here. These are side cutters. Okay, so they call them side cutters because they cut on one side. So you want to have a pair of those in your arsenal. All right, not these. You can have a set of these. They're good to have. These little notches on the sides here are for cutting wire. You can put a wire in there and then squeeze it, and it just cuts them right off with very little effort. Tools that you should have in your arsenal anyway. Okay, another thing, rosin core solder, not acid core and not just plain lead solder. You want rosin core for electrical. Okay, so that's a very important thing to have. There'll be a link in the description for rosin core solder. Another item you want, a little propane torch with a self push button igniter. Okay, you just open this up and push the button, click. Now, a little tip, always loosen the thing up completely and put it on for one thread so it just stays in place. And that will keep it from leaking overnight or putting pressure on the seals, and it'll last you a long time. There'll be a link in the description below to buy this little piece. Now the 1 pound tanks, you can buy those at any store, like Home Depot sells them, Kmart sells them, Walmart sells them, everybody sells them. So you can get those there. And down the line I'll show you a little trick that I do. I've got a refill valve that goes on one of the big 20-pound propane tanks, and then you screw one of these on there, open up turn the big tank upside down, open up the valve at the top, and you can refill these little 1 pound cans. And there's a certain weight that you just put them on a scale, a kitchen scale, and make sure that they weigh the proper amount, not too much. Okay, that's that. Now on these guns right here, you squeeze the trigger to start it, and the light will come on right there and tell you that it's working. And this will get hot almost instantly, hot enough to melt solder. So that's what you want. You don't want to have to sit there and hold a hot soldering iron on your solar panel for long periods of time. All right, so let's see what else I have on my list here. The diodes, I can leave a link on the same section with all the other links, but don't just buy those diodes and say they'll work for every panel. You want to get the right value for the panel that you're going to be repairing. Okay, and some of them will actually come with the wires already bent for you. But if you get the ones with the straight, they'll fit a lot of different places. You just cut the wire down to size, whatever length you need, bend it like that so you can solder it into place, and that's it. Now on this Harbor Freight panel, you wouldn't have to bend them. You'll just put them straight in. I'm also going to include a link to another video by another man who buys, or actually he gets his solar panels for free from a company that disposes of them, because they have to pay to dispose of a panel that's not working. So a lot of them will just say, it's not worth my time, just give it to him. So he buys those really, really cheap, a couple of dollars a piece, or gets them for free, and changes the diodes, and he gets good working panels. Watch the video, you'll see how it's all done. Okay, I just wanted to cover some of the stuff on there that he talks about, and he talks about using acid core solder. Don't use acid core solder on electronics. It corrodes the electronics. Okay, one last thing, because this is getting pretty long. These right here are called MOSFETs. And some of the solar panel companies have started using this MOSFET as a high voltage diode. And you might open a panel and find 3 or 4 of these things in the panel and think, well, those don't match my diodes. Don't worry about it. Pull these out, throw them away, or just cut the wires using your side cutters. You can reach right in and just cut those off. Okay, so get these by just cutting the connections on it. And then you would put you'll see it in the video of the guy that repairs his panels. And you put your diode replacements in there and solder them in place, all facing the same way with the silver stripe going towards the positive wire. Okay? Now this is another diode setup. Now don't mistake thinking that you can use one of these in replace of the ones like this that are inside the panel. The ones inside the panel keep backfeed power from going to any one of the cells that's shaded or not getting direct sunlight. This one stops all the electricity from going backwards to the panel altogether. So it cuts the whole panel. So you don't want to really use these unless you really have to. Just replace the diodes in the panels. And we'll get down to doing some of those, because I just found some local areas here that aren't really far away, might be 16 miles or so, and they have used solar panels for sale, and they let you go in there and test them out yourself before you buy anything. So I'm going to check those out, because I saw some 270, 280 watt panels they had in there for like $67. That's a definite good buy. All right, everybody. That's about all I have for today. Don't forget to go over and check Get to the Farm, and you might want to sub to them, and they check out all the different websites for you for off-grid, and then they post a video of each website with the different specialties that they do, and so you might want to sub to that, and if you do, tell them G-Bear sent you. Otherwise, that's it for today. I'm gonna head inside here in a little bit and post this. It's going to take a while to upload because it's a pretty long video at 25 minutes. But don't forget your thumbs ups, down there. Don't forget to share and subscribe. And save it if you want to save this for later. This is G-Bear signing.